Hello, everyone. Welcome to FedScoop TV. Greg Otto, your host here. We're here at the Public Sector Innovation Series, and I'm talking with Rick Howard, the Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Network. Rick, thanks for joining us today.
You bet. I love it.
So this is a Public Sector Innovation Summit. We're really talking more about the federal government and their IT enterprises, and with you being a private sector cybersecurity professional, I would love to hear your experiences dealing with the federal government and how you see them evolve when it comes to cybersecurity.
Oh, for cybersecurity. Well, I think it's typical. I'm an old government guy myself. I'm an old Army guy, so I've been on both sides, right? And typically government in cybersecurity and technology in general are about 10 years behind where the commercial sector is. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it's just kind of a rule of thumb.
Okay.
And it's not that there isn't a will, it's just for some reason the machinery of getting the new stuff out there is kind of slower in the government space.
Okay, so there's been some talks and some motion inside the government. We were talking about this a little bit earlier about how chief security officers and chief information security officers, where do they sit when it comes to the C-suite inside government agencies? And I know this is a private sector problem as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you see this evolving when it comes to leadership getting their arms around cybersecurity.
This is something that the cybersecurity people have been debating since we started doing this, right? And to understand the answer, you kind of have to know a little bit of the history of how we got here, right? Typical company level executives were pretty much the same from back in the 30s until about the 1985. Okay, when two companies decided they needed a specific C-level executive to do the technology stuff. So United Airlines, I believe, hired their first CIO in like 1985. Okay. All right. No security people yet. We didn't really need it yet. All right. We didn't get the first CISO until 1995. When a bank brought their first one in when they had their first big cybercrime incident.
Okay.
But what happened was we hired CISOs from the technical staff. Right, and these guys and gals, right, are from the technical side. They don't really understand business that well, all right? And so their idea of a great report to give to the CEO is to run in there with the latest vulnerability scan and show the CEO all the vulnerabilities they discovered in their latest thing. And the CEO looks at them like they have a horn growing out of their head because they don't know what that means, right? So after a few years of doing that, the senior people said, you technical people, you're technical, go work for the CIO. And I think that was our mistake, the security community's mistake, okay? We didn't understand business well enough to convey cyber risk to business leadership. So the debate in the commercial sector is, where does the security executive sit compared to the IT or the technology executive? In many organizations, the CISO works for the CIO, okay, and that works in many cases it does not. And the reasons it doesn't work is the CIO's job is to innovate for the company and to bring revenue in with whatever they're building for their commercial company. And if security gets in the way of that, okay, that's the first decision that's going to get cut. So in some cases, that kind of relationship doesn't work. The other organization is the CISO and the CIO are peers, okay, and they report to somebody on the executive staff like the COO or the CEO. That works in many cases. In other places it doesn't because it causes strife. There's a great book out there that's called Winning as a CISO, written by Richard Bayich. Right now he's the CISO of Wells Fargo.
Okay.
And he talks about there should be a healthy tension between the innovator of the company, the CIO, and the person that has to secure it, okay, the security person. And they shouldn't be saying no to each other, but they should be discussing how those two things go together.
Right.
So in the government space, it's a lot different, okay, because we appoint CISOs and CIOs, and they don't really have any power. Sometimes they don't have any budget, but they're supposed to be telling things how to get done in the government. And that doesn't really work at all. It's probably one of the reasons that the government is perceived to be so far behind the commercial space. You and I were talking before, okay, that it makes sense that we need to hold the secretaries in charge of these big organizations responsible for the security of the organization. And if you can get that done, then I think the natural organization and the culture will come together and figure out where the right people go in the right spots.
So let's talk a little bit more about the technology that the government is trying to move toward. There's always been, it feels like always, it's been now 4 or 5 years, this push to move to the cloud and get away from legacy IT. What do security professionals inside government agencies need to be telling those secretaries about, what are the security flags that they need to be running as organizations are moving toward the cloud?
This is a great question, and it's so exciting right now. Okay, we are in this window. We've all noticed the paradigm shift, that we're all going to do something different in the cloud. Typically, paradigm shifts, we notice them 5 years after it's already happened, and we were either in it or not, right? And then we have to kind of catch up if we're not. We all know that we are moving to the cloud, okay? And that it is possible to have the same security that you had in your old way, back in your data centers and back behind your perimeter. You can have the exact same security in the cloud that you had in the other places, right? And so as we move and we all adopt this new idea called DevOps, are you familiar with this idea?
Yes.
Right? I talked to a lot of people about DevOps, and they all claim to be DevOps shops. But what most of them are doing is moving their old legacy applications to the cloud, and they call that DevOps. That is,
that's not DevOps. That's not DevOps at all.
That is not it.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Let me put it at a high level. DevOps is the ability to deploy and pull back and to update applications 10, 15 times a day without any out of service for your customer. Right. And the way you do that is you automate everything. Right? You have to automate the frameworks to deploy, to make sure it's working okay, to pull it back if it doesn't, and then re-put it back out when it's ready. All that has to be automated. Companies that are doing that in the commercial space right now are companies we've all heard of. Netflix and Salesforce.com and Facebook and those kinds of companies are doing that now. It's one of the reasons they're so successful. All right, so if the government is now trying to move in that direction, develop their own DevOps shops, but I'm worried because they all think that moving their apps to the cloud is going to get them there, and it is not. This is our 5-year window to change how we used to do things, how it is so painful to build an application in the commercial space and the government space. It's even worse in the government space.
Right.
But with the new DevOps philosophy, right, where we're deploying 10 times a day, okay, we can take all those constraints away from us if we adopt the model. And we are in the window now. We're changing to a new environment. Okay, we can secure it the same way we secured our old environments. So if you do not change how you do things now, you're going to miss the opportunity. Okay, and in about 5 years, that window is going to close, and you're going to have all your stuff doing the same thing they did in the cloud that they did back in the old ways, and you don't want to be there.
Right. Rick, appreciate your insights. Thanks for stopping by.
You bet. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
For all of our videos, check out our YouTube channel, and for more information, check out fedscoop.com. I'm Greg Otto. Thanks for watching.